Welcome, Rafe. And welcome everybody. We are today's discussion is going to be surrounding Power BI and Automate, and we have Rafe Johnson on the call with us, and he's got a brief demonstration over the next 30 minutes of kind of the power of Power BI and Power Automate. Go ahead, Rafe.
Sounds good. Thanks so much for having me back again today. I know in some of our previous calls, we talked about SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams. We even mentioned Endpoint Manager, managing your fleet of devices, mobile device, mobile application management. Today, I'm really excited to talk and go even further into the world of Microsoft, specifically looking at Power Automate, looking at Power BI. Now, in 30 minutes, we're not going to be able to touch on everything that is within the world of Power Automate and Power BI. And the reason is that there's so much into it. It's so involved within all of the different tools you'll use within Microsoft. So hopefully just give you an overview today of some of the fun things that you can do with it. Starting out, I'm going to go to Power Automate just to start. You may also know it as Flow, which is what it used to be called. So Power Automate, Flow, just remember it is the same thing. So if you hear me interchange those terms, we're still talking about the same tool within Microsoft. I get the question quite a bit, what is Power Automate? And I usually turn it around and say, what do you want it to be? What do you want to use it for? And the reason is there is hundreds, if not thousands of connectors you can use within Power Automate to not only connect all of the data, all of the tools, all of your systems within Microsoft as a whole. So think about Microsoft Teams talking with Microsoft SharePoint, or think of Outlook talking with Teams. You can create these really easy connectors, what I like to call low code, no code, in order to get everything talking. Or you can even look outside of the Microsoft world even. There's connectors with things like Salesforce. If you're using things like VoIP systems, you can connect that as well. If you've ever used something like a Zapier, Power Automate is going to be very familiar, very similar. The good news is that with most Microsoft licensing, Power Automate's included. So it is one of those tools that you get included. Not many people use it. It's kind of the unknown stepchild of Microsoft. But once you really get into it, once you start using it, you can do some really powerful things. So to start out, since we only have 30 minutes, let me go ahead and share my screen. And I'm going to start with a simple and easy flow or automate. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a brand new Microsoft form. So Microsoft Forms is going to be that simple, easy data collection for both internal within your organization, as well as you can send the link external to get information on what do people think about your products? What do they want to see coming up next? What is their review of the past ticket or service that you provided them? You don't have to use Microsoft Forms. There's plenty of other third-party forms that you can use as well to connect. But for today's demo, trying to keep it simple, let's use a Microsoft tool. So I'm going to say this is today's demo form. I can enter a description. I'm going to say collecting information. Pretty simple. I'm going to add new. I'm going to go ahead and put in a text field, and I'm going to ask for their name. And let's make it required because we want to know who's filling it out. Next, I'm going to go ahead and say, let's grab their email so we can follow up with them. Thank you for your helpful hint. Don't need that right now. Next, maybe we want to do a choice. And let's say, how did you like our service? And we can say it was bad. Hopefully no one chooses that one. Good. Or we're going to say excellent. And you can see it even gives you little suggestions for what you might want to use it for. And then finally, maybe we want to do a text and say any final thoughts. So quick, easy 4 entries on this form. And now we've officially created it. If we wanted to make it fun, maybe in our demo today, let's do a spaceship. That seems very tech sci-fi themed. You can add in a logo. You can add in an image on top. It doesn't have to look, I guess, this tacky. This is just our demo today. Now that we built our form, what we can do is I can go ahead and click on the send button here, copy a link to that form, and let me just paste it in one of my browser tabs here. By doing that, I can go ahead and say, enter my name. I can enter my email here. Let me enter my demo email address. And we had excellent service today. And I can say no final thoughts. So Someone submits this form, you can get the information by going to Microsoft Forms, but just as it stands, how it is, this information isn't talking to any other tool within Microsoft. It's just kind of sitting in our forms, responses, results right here. Not much you can do with it, right? You didn't get a notification, you didn't get a message within Teams, and you're not storing that data in a SharePoint list, in an Excel, anything like that yet. This is where PowerAutomate really comes into play, because now we can connect these details, we can connect the information that was just entered to any of the tools, features, systems within Microsoft. So what I'm going to do next is let's go to the PowerAutomate application. I already have it up here, but at any point you could go to your waffle or hamburger menu in the upper left, and then you'll see your PowerAutomate. It'll look like a little blue arrow here. Click on it and open up that tool. Like I mentioned, PowerAutomate is included with a lot of your Microsoft licensing already out there. So if you see it, you have it, you use it, you can build it. When you first get to PowerAutomate, you're going to be on the home screen here, and you might be a little bit confused. What do I do? Where do I go? One of the best places to really start is you can search for a template just by clicking in this search box here. It'll have the nice little magnifying glass. Otherwise, if you want to see a long list of templates pre-built for you to use, let's just click on the template on the left-hand side. Now, because my data is coming in through a Microsoft form, what I can do is let's just search for all templates that have the word form in it. You'll notice that all of these have the little form logo, which is the exact same tool that we used to build this form we just created. And let's choose the best one for us. So for example, maybe you want to start an approval process, or maybe if you want all of the form entries to be saved in a SharePoint list, which then of course you can embed within SharePoint. You can connect to Power BI, which we're going to be talking about in a little bit as well. So hopefully you see how things are starting to connect. Or we can just do a simple one. Let's say send an email from a shared mailbox when that Microsoft form is submitted. It's been used almost 23,000 times. It's automated. There's nothing that I need to do to trigger this. This sounds like a good option for today's demo. So let's go ahead and choose this flow. If this is your first time logging into Flow or PowerAutomate, remember they're interchangeable, it'll ask you to connect some of the tools within Microsoft. So in this case, it wants us to make sure that we have the right or the ability to use this Microsoft form as well as Outlook. Now I've already used it, so I already got those green check marks. Otherwise, you just want to make sure that they're there. And let's click on Continue. Because we used a template within PowerAutomate, you can see that the steps are already pre-built. What I need to do is just fill them in. So the first place that I'm going to start is when a new response is submitted. It's asking for a form ID. So I'm just going to drop down this list. And if you remember, the name of the form that I just created in our demo today is today's demo form. Try to keep it pretty easy, pretty simple to find. So alphabetically, I'm just going to scroll down and say, look, there's my today's demo form. Now here we want the unique identifier for when that form is submitted. Let's just choose the same one here. So what we're saying is when that form is submitted, it's going to kick off the logic flows that are already here. And in the email that's going to be sent, we want to be able to pull the details, the information from that form. So that's why we're saying get that response that was just submitted. So then we can add it to the email here. So form is submitted. It's going to pull that information from the responses, and let's send an email address. Let's send an email out. So from here, you can go ahead and say, maybe I want to send it from my email demo account here. So it's going to come from my email address, and maybe I want to send it to my colleague, David, for example. I'm just going to go ahead and search for users within my organization. And look, I found him. Let me go ahead and add David. And maybe I also want to send it to Matt, who's on our call as well. I'm just going to go ahead and find it. As long as they are within your organization, they're within your Azure Active Directory, which is your identity database within Microsoft, you will be able to find them. And actually, you just might be under Matt, is my guess.
It's 1T in Matt.
A 1T. There we go. Perfect. And there is his email. So right now, what I've said is when that form is submitted, get the details. It's going to come from my email address, and it's going to send it to both David and Matt here. The default subject, not really fun, not really exciting. So let's change that. I'm going to delete the subject here. And what do we want it to be? Maybe I wanted to say we have received an exciting new form submission. Put in the exclamation mark. And because we're getting the response or the form details, what I can also do, and it's a little bit hidden here, so let me go ahead and scroll down, and you can add dynamic content from the form. So maybe in that subject, I want to know who exactly submitted it. So I can put in that name. Or we have their email because we asked them that question in the form as well. I can go ahead and say, let's add in their email address. So I have it right on top. I know who submitted it, and I can respond pretty quickly. Now from here, the body, let's go ahead and add in all of the details. So I could say, I want to know exactly who the person was that submitted it. We can put in their email. And now by building this once, whether that form is submitted 1 time, 2 times, 100 times, the flow will run every single place and give you all of the information to your Outlook. And let's say, how did you like? There we go. Let's go ahead and put it in. How did you like our service? We can get their details in there as well. And then any final thoughts is the last question that we had. Perfect. So now if you're happy with whenever that form is submitted, you just want to get an email sent to these 2 users, we can go ahead and save. And when you do save, it is going to check your flow, the automate triggers that you just created to make sure that everything looks good. So yep, your flow is ready to go. We recommend that you test it. As always, you want to test it before you really turn this on and send it to 100 people, for example, but it already went through. My logic workflow makes sense, and PowerAutomate has approved it. So let's say that email isn't all you want to do. Maybe you want to add in the ability to say, let's send a Teams message when this form is submitted. That's pretty cool. If you're working in Teams, you're using it as your collaborative tool, you're messaging back and forth. Let's pull that in. So maybe we still want to keep this email going through. That's fine. We're going to leave that. We're just going to add a new step below, and maybe we want to search for an operation Teams. We don't want to create a new team. That would create too many within the app, and now we don't know where to go. Maybe we want to go ahead and create a chat, or let's say message. Let's just search for Teams here. And here we can, let's go ahead and post a message in a chat or channel. What I can then do is, as soon as I go ahead and click on this step here, and it wants to go a little bit slower, doesn't it always when we do a demo, you can choose how do you want to post it. So do you want to post it coming from my Teams account, or do we just want to set it from the Flowbot, which if you've ever used Teams before, some of its advanced features, it just shows up as Teams is the person that's sending the message. Let's do it there. And let's go ahead and choose one of my teams. Let's choose a channel. I can choose my team ID. So maybe I want it in my demo Teams application. And let's choose my channel. Let's just put it in the demo. So what I'm doing is, as you're dropping it down, it is logically telling you the next step. How do you want to post it? Where do you want to post it? I said a channel. I want it posted in this team and then in this channel within that team. As you go down, it'll search through all of the information you have. So if your SharePoint, if your Teams infrastructure is already built up, makes it very easy to add in another step. And now the message, what do we actually want to be posted? We still have our dynamic content here. So let's go ahead and say name, filled out the form. Please respond to their email, which we have their email since they added it here. And then I can just go ahead, click on next. details of form is what I can say. And then let's say, how did you like our service? Go ahead and choose that one here, and any final thoughts. Once we did that, we can save it, and then it just adds another step. So for anybody that's joined the call within the past couple minutes, let's just quickly review what we're doing. When this form that we created is submitted, it is going to get the response details of that form. It is going to send an email from my account to both David and Matt. It's going to give them this information in that email, and then it will also post it in Teams. If I click on New Step, if I wanted to add the entry details to an Excel, you can do that as well. If you want to send it to a planner, create a planner task from it, there are hundreds and thousands of different triggers and operations you can use. Low code, no code. We built this in about 10 minutes. Pretty nice, and it's a great tool that's included. What I'll do next is let's make sure that our flow is running. So what I'm going to do is let's fill out that form again. So I'm going to go to the entry details here, and let's put in demo Rafe, so they know that when that email comes through, it is still a demo. And I'm going to put in my test email here. And I'm going to say our service was excellent. And final thoughts, I'm going to say this is a demo for Flow. No reason to respond. Once I submit that, because it is an automated flow, we're going to see that run history here. And we should get, yep, that form was submitted 4 seconds ago. And now it's running through all of the steps that we just created. Now it failed. This may happen, especially if you're brand new to building flows. Let's see why it did. In this case, my guess is it's going to fail at the email step because I didn't use a shared mailbox. I used my account for the example here.
I
So,
did receive it on my end.
oh, you did? Perfect. So actually, it failed on the post message in chat. Why? It will give you error details. Now, the reason why here it says that it doesn't like my demo Teams account that I added. Now, that was just the last step here, so I could post it to a different channel. I can post it from myself rather than the Flow bot, which it seems to be mad at. So if you get a fail, it'll tell you where exactly in the steps that it did it. You can always resubmit it and rerun it. I won't do that because everybody just got an email from here. But even if you're new to something like this, it is user friendly. It will give you that information. If you're looking for more of the advanced flows, let's say I've created flows that had 10 different steps below that, they can get quite complicated quickly. So that's why we're here to help. We do this all the time. We're your trusted contact to do it, but it's something to think about. Generally, when people say, how do we implement PowerAutomate Flow? I usually suggest think of the processes within your organization that take 30 minutes, an hour every single day, and see how we can put in something like a flow to just make that much easier. So rather than saying like people uploading a whole bunch of files from one folder or moving files from one place to another, we might be able to automate that. If, for example, you're using a lot of paper and you're scanning, maybe we want to create a flow to say, when a document is saved here, it automatically moves that scan to SharePoint or OneDrive. Or if someone is manually typing in an Excel document, which when you have a bunch of people in Excel, you know things can be deleted, things can be moved. Maybe we want to build a form and just have a quick and clean process to get data into the Excel. That's all through Flow as well. These are some of the things to think about. What will save you time? What are those repetitive processes that we can really leverage Microsoft and leverage the technology to use? I will throw out the final caveat here is that not every single third-party tool can be connected to PowerAutomate. So if you are using some niche third-party application, we may come back and say, you know, it just can't be connected. Maybe we find a different workaround to go ahead and use it. But there are hundreds, if not thousands, of connectors, and you can always go through and see if something would be connected here. You can see even Gmail you can connect. So a lot in there. And hopefully you're getting the idea, as well as there's so much you can do with it. Maybe you search through the templates, find one that you want and you want it to be implemented. Take a look. It is a powerful tool. Highly recommend. The last couple minutes here before we go into a little bit of Q&A, if we have some time, is Power BI. So I personally love Power BI. It is actually one of the tools within Microsoft that I like to say is it's half science and half art. The reason is that once you have data within your Microsoft environment, so let's say in this form, whenever it's submitted, we want the form details to be saved into a SharePoint list. We want it to be saved in Excel. After 200, 300 entries, we have a whole bunch of data that's getting a little bit hard to really parse through and understand what is the data telling us. As long as that information is within Microsoft, either in that SharePoint list or in Excel, we can then pull that data out and we can put it into a nice dashboard within Power BI. Power BI is very similar if you've used a tool like Tableau, where we build these dashboards. There's dozens of different visuals that we can use. And here's just a good example with some demo data. Don't worry, it is demo. That's why I'm showing it today. And you can see you can do bar graphs, you can do line graphs, you can even do word clouds, you can filter, you can sort. A good example of how all of this information and data is connected is if I just click on one of those folders here, it brings me to a different view. And as I filter and sort just by clicking on some of these bars, you'll see that all of my other dashboards, all of my other graphs are moving as well. So we're slicing, we're building into it. If there's a way that you want to see your data in a nice graphical representation, Power BI is going to be the way to go. It's going to be the way to do it. We just need to make sure that the information is somewhere within the Microsoft world. Power BI, you can get a free license just to test it out, to use it, to start building some of it. I will say that it can easily get very much into the weeds if you start building some of these. A lot of the times you do have to use the Power BI desktop app in order to build some of these more advanced graphs. We can walk through, we can help you build it, put it in a dashboard, and really, however you want it to look, that's how we can do it. It does give you that freedom. There's so many different things to choose from. So a lot of times I say, if you currently have an Excel dashboard that you might be using, or if you can just mock up some squares, mock up some rectangles, how you'd like it to look, that creates a great template and a great base for us to really look at, and then convert it, move it into something like a Power BI. This is all live data. As new information is being entered in the form, after a couple of minutes, it'll automatically be updated here. Some additional benefits of Power BI is you can share the dashboard with others. So if you create one and you want to send it to your manager, or maybe you want to send it to your board of directors, or maybe you just have a consultant that's external that you want to dig through it, you can create it, send it off to them if you have that advanced Power BI Pro license, or you can even embed it on a public web page. How I've seen that before is I've actually seen a list of membership, like a membership database that was put in a beautiful Power BI dashboard here, posted on their public website so that any point someone could come in, see who are all members of that organization, find their contact information, all of that good stuff. Still built in Power BI, connecting information from a SharePoint list and then shared externally, and the data will be updating for you. So it's really about getting your information to where it needs to go, making sure that that part's good, and then how do you want to use that data? Data is king, and that's where Power BI comes into play. All right. Any questions from anybody that's on the call, or Matt, Preston, anything you might want to add?
I have, go ahead, Preston.
I thank you. A question. So if somebody creates a flow, but then say 3 months later, they leave the organization, what happens?
Great point. So there's a couple things that you can do. One of the first and best practices that I like to do is when you are creating a flow, you can always share that flow with somebody else. So for example, if I were to go to my flows here, and it doesn't want to cooperate with me today, there we go. So if I were to go to this flow and click on the 3 dots, what I can do is I can share it, I can export it, I can save as a copy, and then send it to someone else that might want to take over it afterwards. Otherwise, if you are a global administrator within the Microsoft world, you can always go in and connect with your information, with your data as well. And then you'll see you can always add in another owner. So there's a bunch of different ways to get around it. Generally, some ways that I've seen organizations get around this is you have one account that's licensed that is specifically for building Power BI, or you just share it with a group, you share it with other members so they can easily work on it. And then this way, if it were to fail, and let's say the person that built it is out of town on a trip to Cancun, someone else can still get in, edit it, and fix it and make sure it's working.
Perfect. Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right. I had on the PowerAutomate, it's a with the flows. Is it easy to make it externally available? So it sounds like there's ways to publish an internal one, which it looks pretty straightforward, like the survey you created. If you wanted to have a survey created that was externally facing, is it easy to send that to anyone?
It is, yes. So if we were to go back to our form here, and I'm going to go to where we can edit this form. So let me just go to questions here. If I were to click on send, the first thing that you're going to see here is only people in my organization can respond. Now that doesn't always work. All you need to do is once you build that form, drop it down and you can say anyone can respond. So now what you can do is you can copy that link, you can send it in an external email. You can also do something like embed it. Maybe you want to embed it as an iframe on one of your public website pages. You can do that as well. As long as anyone can respond here and you have the link somewhere for someone to find it, fill it out.
That's cool.
No matter who fills out that information, it's now going to go to your Outlook like we saw. It's going to go to your Teams. It can go to a SharePoint list in Excel. And pretty nice. And this is just the basic works of form. There are some more advanced form editors, creators that we can look at as well if you really want to get into some fun, if this, then that, and really step it up a notch.
I know we're running low on time, so I'm going to ask my last question. It's in a couple parts, but it's with Power BI. Examples of data sources. If you have a pivot table today in Excel, is that a good example of something you could kind of rebuild within Power BI? And the second part of the question is, can you also use multiple data sources within one Power BI presentation?
Absolutely, yes. So if you have a pivot table already in an Excel document, what we would do is we wouldn't actually pull the data from the pivot table itself because it's just a graphic representation of the data. But if you have, let's say, the sheet 1, sheet 2 in Excel next to that pivot table where the data is, we can absolutely pull it. We just want to make sure that that Excel document is saved within a cloud location so Power BI can find it, whether that's OneDrive, whether that's SharePoint, whether that's Teams. As long as that Excel document is in there with the data, we can absolutely pull it. And another great point is you can pull in as many data sources as you want. So let's say you have 3 different forms that you've created and they're still all connected, but each of those forms is trying to pull a different piece of that puzzle. Within Power BI, we can import all 3 of those Excels, those SharePoint lists where the data is feeding into, and then connect some of the data together so Power BI knows what's really the same type of information, put it in a graph, put it into color representation. Absolutely. And even if you want to say, we have one piece of data in Excel, we have one in a SharePoint list, and one somewhere else, we can all combine it. It's just a process of importing it, putting it in, and telling really how is everything all connected together.
That's great. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. We have about 1 minute left. Any final questions, or are we good to take it out?
I think we're good.
There's no other questions waiting.
Perfect. And I know I went through it quite quickly today. So reach out if you have any other questions. You might have an idea in the back of your mind, an inkling of how Power BI, PowerAutomate can really help. And perfect. Take it away, Matt.
I was just that Preston. Thank you. Yeah, if we do lots and lots of work with Rafe and his team, and if anybody has any questions whatsoever on Power BI, PowerAutomate, definitely reach out to Preston or myself, and we can help arrange some time to do an analysis of that with Rafe and his group. And see if there's a solution out there that with the tools you have today that can solve a problem that you may think was unsolvable before. Thanks for attending, and I appreciate everyone's time. Thanks, Rafe.
You're welcome. Have a great day, everyone. Talk to you all soon.
Bye.